welcome to the second attempt at our exciting new format change. Thank goodness we're sticking to the original as well. Previously, you will have found out that we thought Paradise Towers is a bag of poop, and it is the worst Sylvester McCoy story. That is what we decided. That's what we decided. Down with the Kangs. They're not the best. But in the yin and the yang, we're going to look at what we thought was the best Sylvester McCoy story now. I mean, there are three others, but they're mine. It's like Marcel Marceau here. It's like...
Well, I'm looking forward to this because it's always nice to have some positivity, isn't it?
As the Spice Girls wisely told us once, all you need is positivity.
I led you into it. It's great.
It's great. Jason doesn't know the Spice Girls. He gave up when the Supremes ruined pop music for him.
Nina Simone, really, I think.
Tchaikovsky, he's like, oh, this will never catch on. So,
my days.
Sadly, just missing out on a place in it. The top three for us previously were Remembrance of the Daleks, and that our favourite voted. Second place was The Curse of Fenric, and third place, Silver Nemesis. Even more controversially, it just put Battlefield into fourth place. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, never let it be said that our scores are anything less than controversial. That 3 and 4 were Nemesis and Battlefield. Who'd have thunk it?
Controversial, and I like to think edgy.
You start edging, and we'll start the story. It's the first one we are looking at is Remembrance of the Daleks, which none of us can really pith on because this is the only story from the era where we all gave it 10 points.
We did big tens, 10, 10, 10.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why is Jason doing his canine dance?
Well, that was a 10 dance. 10 canine dance going on there. But no, we gave it a 10 for very good reason, because it's a bloody good story. That's why.
There was more coming then, but there wasn't. I mean, canine dance could because John Leeson's the battle computer in Remembrance, and that's what makes you think canine.
I was looking for some support from my fellow commentators here. I was leading in and expecting one of you to pick up, that sort of chat show that you should have here. It's kind of.
I thought you were just going to be your usual wandering off down memory lane for 20 minutes, and then
it's not based in Cardiff, so you're okay. You're safe on this one.
That's right. I mean, as we all gave it 10, should we go to Ben? Because
did you just rhyme like Pam Ayres?
I did.
My days. God, he's not. I tell you what, he's no risk to you, P-Bal. No risk to you at all.
On my poetry skills.
No, on your presenting skills.
I'm going to think of a limerick now. Ben.
Yes. Will Ben give it a 10? That's what you want to know, yes?
It's a 10 from Ben.
This is a 10 from Ben. Ben will give it a 10. Yes.
Right, can we stop rhyming now? I don't think we're going to get any awards for this. I don't think it's going to win. Ben, are you a fan of Doctor Who and the Remembrance of the Daleks?
Yes, I am. I love it. I really, really do. I remember watching it when I was a teenager many, many years ago, and I really, really enjoyed it. I thought, wow, this is really, especially after season 24, which I was not very happy with, to put it mildly. Suddenly, bang, you're into season 25, and you got lots of, intrigue and action and, great guest stars and, Daleks and bangs and flashes and everything, and it just throws everything at the wall, and it sticks. It actually sticks. I think the direction's great. The cast are really, really good. It really helps the whole 1963 thing going backwards and showing the whole the Tosses Lane and all the references and stuff in it, and the music, even though some of it had to be slightly changed because of the copyright problems, but never mind. I thought, the incidental music's great. I know some people maybe aren't so happy with it because it does sound, even though it's set in the 60s, but it does sound very 80s, you know, music wise. But I think that's the thing. I think with that sort of thing, you can just forget about it. You just immerse yourself in it, and you watch it, you enjoy it. It's got great locations as well. The school, the graveyard, lots of great location work, and yeah, I really like it. Yeah.
It does feel like an absolute fresh blast, doesn't it? And I'm not. I think 24 is a lot of nice things to like in 24, but this just feels like the Doctrinates have been there for forever, doesn't it? I mean, this is literally Sophie's second story, but it doesn't feel like she's finding her feet there. It is they are established in this. They've worked it, which is incredible. We think how little they've done. Because even Dragonfire is not very sort of Ace and Doctor Who centric. She's with Mel for most of it, isn't she? So it's just probably it's a testament to Sylvester and Sophie's chemistry, I suppose, really, that it works quickly so quickly, even.
Yeah, I love Sophie. I think she's great. She, as you say, this is her first story proper, and she just gets straight into it. And yeah, it's great. As you say, they have fantastic chemistry together, and she holds her own as well. And she just basically, doesn't take any crap from anyone, and just is right out there. And it's such a refreshing. I mean, yeah, after Mel, I know a lot of people were sort of happy to see the back of Mel. Now you sort of watch it afterwards and you think, oh, Bonnie did her best, she was good. But I think Ace is a real breath of fresh air, and really sort of really tough and holds her own. Is like, wow, this is a great companion, and it helps because it goes along with the flow with the story, and she's great. She's really, really good.
100% agree, Ben. I mean, retrospectively, obviously back in the day, I don't think Bonnie was given the kudos I think that she should have been given. You're right. She just came into the show at just the wrong time. But there's something about the way Sophie lands, and in this one, you've got action sequences where she's jumping around on desks and bashing Daleks with a baseball bat, and you've got the Nitra 9, and you've got all the sort of cliffhanger bits, and all that. She's right in the thick of the action. She's confronted with sort of some racism, and she's sort of, she's right in the middle of it. And I love the fact that she was going to go on and become, I think, really one of our favorite companions, most certainly up there in a very, very high list of decent companions I think we've had over the years. Yeah, brilliant stuff. And this story for me really cements her already second story, as you said, but cements her as being a strong companion and works well with Sylvester.
And this story looks at, you mentioned like racism, it covers lots of different themes. There's that wonderful scene where the Doctor's just sat in the cafe and he's talking about ripples, and they talk about the sugar cane cutter, and you have sort of these action sequences, but it doesn't stop it from taking a moment to just breathe, to just take a sideways step at something else, and then come back to the main the main story. I remember the girl being really chilling, the little school girl who's been sort of slave to the Dalek computer, and the lightning coming out of her fingers. You've got Dursley in this, as well as Mike, who at the time I was just like, why, hello. He was really good looking, and he kind of, when he turned out to be working for the other side, he was like, oh, why? But there's some greats in the junkyard as well, when the Dalek sort of hiding in the sort of shed, and then comes out and exterminates, and the Doctor blows it up. There's sort of really great action sequences, but at the same time there are quieter moments where it shows the maturity of the show, and that it's able to take some of those issues. And I know more modern Who has been accused of being too woke and too preachy, but here it's like, oh, by the way, just a simple thing as no no colours in the window tells you what you need to know about society at the time. And there are other brief moments as well, but it's done in such an unobtrusive way. It's part of the story. It's part of living in that time.
It's a very adult Doctor Who. That's what this one feels like.
Yeah, definitely. In performances, in just the way it sets up and deals with stuff. And yeah, I agree completely. It's such a change from season 24, where on a previous video when I was talking about Paradise Towers, and it's just where that seems to almost be pitched at kids, you know, like sort of, and almost sort of talked down to it. Whereas Remembrance, it's just treating your audience as adults, whether they actually be adults or kids, not talking down to them, you know. They're just going, right, these are the scenes, this is what it's going to be. And as you say, it's great because you got a lot of the action scenes, but then you've got the quieter, really nice scenes, a lot of nice scenes between Sylvester and Sophie. They get to sort of chat and so forth, and as you say, and then all the scenes with Sophie with Dursley, and they get to do all that stuff where she's so upset at being betrayed by him, and it's great. It's not sort of hammy. It's not sort of like, oh, we're going to sort of kidify this sort of thing or that. It just goes straight in there and packs a punch, and you really feel for the characters. You really feel their emotion is really heightened because of their performances, and yeah, I think it's great.
It also rises on the set pieces it does, doesn't? Because you get the Dalek going up the stairs properly, and you see a Dalek go up the stairs as an actual thing, and the shuttlecraft landing, rather than it being a kind of like a thing on a cable that sort of across a blue screen, it's an actual prop that they're landing, and it looks good, and so it's interesting that it does contain those sort of set pieces that make it look expensive, even though I know they're sort of battling against having bugger all on the money front. Yeah, and the cast is gorgeous. Simon, Karen, Dursley, and Pam Salem, who's like one of my favorites in the whole world. Forget Doctor Who, she's adorable. So it's such an amazing cast. So I don't think there's even a performance in it where you're like, just got to forgive so and so for doing that wrong, and everything sort of about it hits the right notes, I think.
And we talk about characterization in New Who. We've been doing obviously we've been running through series 1 just recently, and we talk about characters jumping off the page even if they've only got a few lines, and it works in exactly the same way, strangely, in this story, because we've accused Classic of maybe not having that at times, but the guy in the cafe, he's a very small part, but actually just adds something. Everybody adds something to this story.
The only thing I would say is bin bag Davros. It's probably the weakest point. I do like the dialogue between the Doctor and Davros, and he goads him and he gets him to use the Hand of Omega. And you don't really know that it's Davros until the big reveal at the end, and the dome sort of goes backwards, but it just looks really odd. It's sort of like, it's Davros and he's in a bin bag, but that's a really, really tiny minor thing. But I think you've got things like the special weapons Dalek, which are just fantastic. You just sort of blow away 5 other Daleks in just one shot. Is there's some really great things about this episode.
I think we're all on the same page for Remembrance. So let's move on to the second story today, which is Silver Nemesis, which now I'm going to consult the Oracle here insofar as I gave it a 9.
Yeah.
James gave it a 10. Jason gave it a 6.5.
So yes, it may have been my off day. It would appear, because yes, quite rightly, I did score it 6.5, and I gave my reasons at the time for doing so. I didn't feel it was the strongest story in the season by any way, and yeah, it's interesting. And I think you're right. We posed the question, I think, in the previous video where we talked about the worst stories of the Sylvester season. would we reappraise our approach to some of the scores that we'd given back then? And this could be one of those stories where I possibly would think about being open to reappraising it. Did I feel at the time 6.5 was a little harsh? Well, when you guys gave 9s and 10s, yes, possibly I did. But I've always been a person that stands by his scoring, however erratic it may seem at times, because I score it how I feel it. And there were some things, I think, in this story that let it down. It's not perfect by any means. You guys raved about it. There are some good guest cast in this, but I felt it was the story, I think, that let this one down for me. I may reappraise it as we come to this scoring now, but I may not. But it'd be interesting to hear what Ben thinks about it.
Just say the story of a mystical object traveling to Earth and the Doctor's old foes coming back to try and get hold of it. It's quite dissimilar to Remembrance, isn't it?
Yes.
Anyway, Ben.
But maybe one prefers Daleks over Cybermen, possibly.
Well, I'm going to be controversial here. Here we go. Look, you're all like, oh God, what's he going to say now? I'm afraid I think Silver Nemesis is a poor man's Remembrance. Very much so. I think it's the poorest story of the season. I think it has good bits about it, but funnily enough, this was one of those stories that when I watched the first time, I really liked it. Like as a teenager, I watched it and I thought, oh wow, exciting, da da da. But then when I came to watch it as an adult later on, I was thinking, this isn't as good as I thought it was. I think the plot is, whatever plot it is a bit all over the place, and it doesn't quite make sense in a lot of places. I think it doesn't help the editing as well, because I know obviously you can watch another version of it, which is like an extended version, which probably cut out a lot of stuff, because they seem to sort of jump from scene to scene to scene a lot, and sometimes it's a little bit jarring, I find. It's got a great performance. Fiona Walker's Lady Painfort, and Richard is brilliant. I think they're a great double act. They're really, really good. I really enjoy them. Herr de Flores, I mean, come on. it's clearly established that he came over for the tennis and then did this. He has no idea what's going on, and it clearly shows he has no idea what's going on. He just seems to sometimes just be sort of spouting lines, and probably that they went cut and he was like, is that it? Did I say it right? He seems as confused as I think a lot of the viewers are sometimes with this story. So I think, yeah, it's a bit like, what's going on? The Cybermen, I think I'm disappointed with them in this episode. I just don't think. I think after when they came back in Earthshock, they were amazing. It was like, wow. And 5 Doctors, they were really good as well. Attack of the Cybermen, they were still pretty good, but I think in Silver Nemesis, I think it was just, I don't know, there was just something about them. They just appeared a bit too vulnerable, a bit too, because the whole thing with Ace, able to, shoot coins. Yes, I know it's gold coins, but it just seems like she could just dispatch them a lot easier than should be. I don't like their new design. I think that thing, it looks like they've got beards, and the great big cricket gloves it's just really awkward, and they're like really shiny, and then they're not shiny on the suits. I wasn't a fan of when they changed the costume. I just didn't think it really worked. So sorry.
I was just ask
go on,
if you were both social workers.
yeah, those two are good for the brief bit that they get. That's a funny little scene. I like that. But yeah, I just think it's really disjointed. A lot of it doesn't make sense, and it's just it frustrates me, because I think it could have been really good. And the fact that I think it was changed, because I know that originally the story was meant to be something else, and then I think J&T sort of said, oh, because this is we're going to make this the 25th anniversary story. This is the one that's going to be the anniversary one. So you have to make it. You have to silver. So we'll have Cybermen. We'll have a lot of references in it. And I think it got bogged down in all that sort of stuff. And there's a story there somewhere or other underneath, but it's buried in too much exposition and stuff and editing and things like this. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not really a fan.
I think the Quarks were supposed to be in this. No, I gentlemen, I completely disagree with you. I think I remember when this aired, and I remember getting the green sleeve limited edition VHS, and I just remember watching it again and again and again. I enjoy this story, and I like the fact that there are lots of different perils, if you like, but they're one can trump the other one. So you've got Lady Bainfor, who could be, taken out by the Nazis, but was able to kill the Cybermen, and the Cybermen could, there was this sort of they all had an advantage over one other person. So no one sort of they sort of struggled to come out on top, and they were all sort of double crossing each other, and there is I mean, the bit where they're in the limo with Dolores, it's just it's one of my favorite moments. It's just she's sat there, and I did dress as her.
You did. Your cosplay absolutely was there. Your cosplay proved it.
And I just love in amongst all these sort of like sequences of different elements trying to catch the bow and the arrow and the statue and everything, and she got her sat in this limo for sort of like 5 minutes talking about how back in time she killed off her cook, and she's completely oblivious to this. I think there's comedy in there, but then there's also seriousness, and when they go back in time and they keep going back to the sort of mathematician's office, and then they go back and he's dead, and the doctor's sort of saying to Ace, don't look, and he's still quite protective of her, but then later on he's like, yeah, here's a bag of coins and go and take out an army of Cybermen in a factory. And again, I love that. There's some great sequences in there. So I think it's not as serious as Remembrance. There aren't those sort of still moments where they're sort of talking about something serious for a moment. It is just quite a fast-paced story. They skip on quite quickly to, now we know this, we need to go and do this. It suffers slightly because of the edits, because of the bits that are cut out. And I have seen the extended version. There's a couple of bits put back in. There was the big thing about the Doctor's origins, and we picked up a little bit of that in Remembrance. You're seeing a little bit of it in here as well, about how old is he, how long has he been around, how much involvement has he had in Time Lord history. He talks about the statue, and he says, I should never have done this, and Ace is always sort of like picking up on these little clues and going, oh, what do you mean? So I think that I do like this. I think there's some great points in this story.
It's interesting because obviously Ben said it's Poor Man's Remembrance. At the time, it was that thing that J&T felt there were similar storylines. So that's why there's the running order switch, and you get Sophie's ear in continuity, all that little bump. I think it all comes back in my head really to where you're at when you score, and I score on how I like it and how I enjoy it. I'm not scoring it. I don't tend to score things on whether they're the best Doctor Who. I'm not scoring that. I'm scoring on my feeling and whether I'd like it and whether I would watch it, which is sort of where we've ended up with the traumas over Genesis of the Daleks or Deadly Something. I don't think Silver Nemesis is high art. I don't think it's an incredibly well written thing. Remembrance is much better written, much better acted, but it is fun. I enjoy watching it. I even enjoy the bad bits. What are you, social workers, and all that stuff. It's terrible, but I love it. I mean, I think I probably quote Lady Painful a couple of times a day. There is just something enjoyable about the almost panto campery of some of it, isn't there? Phi and all that. It's just fun. And do you know what? It is quite easy, and I'm happy to do it quite often, just to go, it's crap because of this, or I don't like this. But I kind of, in some ways, as awful as it is, I embrace the tack of it, and that's the positive for me in a lot of it. I like the fact that Anton Diffring looks a bit confused, like his agents just sort of said, honestly, it's 7 days, and you know, they'll pay you hotel and it's fine. And I like that. I mean, there are other cases where I wouldn't like that, and that's all part of, you know, life, isn't it? But I think Silver Nemesis, I think there's just something about the whole ethos of it, and like James said about having the video and having the extended version, and then the making of the making of is almost as much fun as the actual production. I hope when it comes around to the Blu-ray set that Angry Fist point, that making of has got to be on that. I think that needs a commentary. The making of it's almost like the making of Acorn Antiques. There's just something amazing about it. So I think I sort of, I don't want to put words in James' mouth, but I think there is a bit of an association and a nostalgia maybe for the story that helps what's probably a fairly average story along in the heart to make the score a bit bigger.
Yeah, it is. I entirely agree. I really enjoy it, and it's not in the same vein as Remembrance, but it is one, like I say, that I have watched probably almost as many times as Remembrance, because it's just fun to watch. And you know, and you're absolutely right, the making of documentary is brilliant, because I would always like watch that straight afterwards. So you know, and even though I'd seen it before, and it tells you how they did the flashing bow, and you know, took you behind the scenes of the sets and things like that, I just thought, you know, it was a really good documentary, and it complemented the story really well.
I appreciate that it's of its time for the both of you, but you know, put it up against Remembrance, which I think is very much more an adult approach to Doctor Who, and this one just doesn't stack up against it for me in kind of the same way. We've all got to like different things. If we were all the same and liked all the same things, that just wouldn't work. So I think I'm seeing it not perhaps as nostalgically as you are, even though it was the 25th anniversary story. I've always really unofficially thought of Remembrance being the 25th anniversary story, because it started the 25th anniversary season for me, and that was one hell of a way to kick the season off. This just doesn't deliver in the same way as that story does.
But I think it's liking something in a different way. I think that's what we're saying. It's not a pure, I loved watching the video, that's why I'm voting for it, or I remember watching that, that's why. It's what you're taking, and Remembrance is if you're talking literally, which is a better drama, Remembrance or Silver Nemesis? There's no real question. It's going to be Remembrance every time. But Silver Nemesis, there's an entertainment, and there's a kind of fun, and I think there's a sort of mindset in there. And I'm not saying in the grand scheme of things it's a better story, but I'm saying that I think the scoring came out in that way because it's what you're taking on it. And if you're being sort of literally down the line, is this better dramatically? Is it better written? Then it's going to flop further down. But if you're taking what you enjoy from it, I think that's when the scores.
And potentially some of the nuances have passed me by on it, and you know, I should take the opportunity to reevaluate it at some point. But I still stand by the score I gave it at the time, because there are elements of it I don't enjoy, and you know, I don't see the same things in the story as you two.
I haven't asked you to change your score. Nobody's told you. You're going on like we told you off about it. Nobody's told you off about scoring it.
I appreciate it, because I kind of like what we're doing, because we're going back and reevaluating certain stories, and it's kind of interesting after we've gone through the entire marathon of going through the classic Who, to go back and just rethink about these top and the bottom stories in the way that we're doing. And it's kind of interesting because, you know, some of our earlier videos, we didn't give the kind of time to some of these reviews as we did in our later ones. And I still think, you know, some of those earlier ones, there's more to explore. So going back and having this opportunity to rethink these and revisit these isn't a bad thing. And by no means do I think, do I sit here and think I'm in the wrong because I've scored it 6.5 and you guys scored it higher. I'm just trying to, I suppose, ensure myself that I'm being honest and not, and if I feel I need to re-review the score, I would do so, but I'm not feeling the need to in this instance.
I think if this story had rocked up in season 20, we would all adore it.
That would have been a 30.
I think you reviewed this before season 20, long before.
Anyway, our final option of best McCoy story is Doctor Who and the Curse of Fenric, which I whopped my 10 out. So in the whole run of McCoy, we all gave Remembrance 10. James gave Silver Nemesis a 10, and I gave Fenric a 10. They were miserly. They went to 9.5. Both of them were like, they just couldn't quite do it. 9.5. What's the blinking point?
It was 9.5. Yes,
9.5. Just call it 10. What's the point? It's like waiting half an hour for a penny change in a shop, isn't it? You go, just all right, just keep the penny. I don't need the receipt. You're all right.
And rewatching back over this, I have to admit, this is one example where I think I don't know if the 9.5 was necessarily as justified as it should have been. And in reality, there isn't much between a 9.5 and a 10. And actually, there is a great deal to like about the Curse of Fenric. And I suppose I could possibly be persuaded to say that it's a 10. If I was to hindsight it back and look at it, there are so many brilliant things about this story. The location, the darkness, the horror, the war, Nicholas Parsons. I could carry on and carry on. You guys will tell everyone more about some of these things. But honestly, this is another brilliant example of where I think they've taken Doctor Who and they've tried to explore some of the characters, particularly Ace's character, and they've darkened the sort of mood of the Doctor and the direction, taking it away from that sort of light-hearted fluff feel of earlier. This is winning on so many levels, and it wins in a different way to Remembrance because we've moved on by this point, and we're, you know, things are a whole lot darker, and we're playing with things in the storylines now that are pulling on a more personal level. It's another brilliant example of McCoy, I think, at his best.
So Ben, have you been in the water?
There's in the water, indeed. Yes. I love Fenric. It's without a doubt the best one of 26. Without a doubt. It's really, really good. I'm just probably going to repeat a lot of what Jason said, but it's got a great load of actors in it who give fantastic performances. All the location stuff is really great and really evocative and really moody, especially the opening sequences in the dinghy when they're going through the fog, and it's just like, wow, what is this? This is amazing. The music is so good. Marquez just hits it on the right note for the music there, and it just the emotion draws out of you, and the scares and the drama. There's room for a little bit of light-hearted fun, you know, throughout the story, but generally it is very dark and moody and dark and doomy throughout the whole thing, and it's got a lot of dramatic performances. It's got a lot of really heart-wrenching performances. The bit where she's reading the letter about what happened, you know, and she lost it in the war. Her husband, was it in the war? I think, yeah. What's her name? I've gone blank now. Ace's mum, basically. Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, that scene is so moving. It's just like, it just tugs at heartstrings, and it's just so good. Gene and Phyllis are amazing. You know, Wainwright, I mean, Nicholas Parsons is just so good. I mean, I didn't grow up here in the country, so obviously everyone else knew him as you know, Sale of the Century and a lot of very light-hearted stuff. Whereas people were quite amazed that, oh my God, he can do really good, serious stuff, and it wasn't sort of like a sort of a Ken Dodd in there, sort of like giving a really sort of like over the top sort of performance. It was really sort of understated and nuanced, and you know, you really felt for him. So yeah, it was great. So as I said, yeah, the performances, everything, yeah, the story's amazing. I really like it.
It is a great story. I gave it 9.5, and I stand by my 9.5. I think it is a good story. I mean, you're right. I can't really add much to what you've already said about, you know, the guest performances. We talked earlier on about Richard Bryars, and here you've got, you know, a great casting of Nicholas Parsons. I think he's brilliant as the sort of the vicar. That scene where he's holding the hemovores off, and then they sort of start talking to him, and they get to him about the people that have died through the war, and it breaks his, you know, his faith, and then they kill him. I think that's, you know, there's some really sort of clever bits a bit later on when Ace has got so much faith in the doctor. She's stopping the hemovore, you know, the what's it called? With a great one, is it the great one?
The ancient one.
The ancient one, yeah, from you know, attacking Fenric. I do find it's a little bit, you know, that Fenric has brought the ancient one from the far future to come back and poison the oceans to kill off everything on Earth. That, you're all looking blankly at me now, so I'm assuming that's the plot hole. But I think, you know, that there is some great performances in here, and the wartime setting is great. There's some, you know, the bit where the building blows up and they're thrown into the bunker. You've got, you know, the sort of resolution of a ongoing thread around Fenric and how he's maneuvered people into places. You never understand which version of the Doctor had met Fenric before, or it's probably one of the countless doctors that we have now. So, you know, it's probably been explained by that. But yeah, don't get me wrong, it's a cracking story, and it got a good mark.
But just that half off. I think the gist is that there are different futures, and one of the futures is that there's an evolution into being hemovores, and this is that, you know, you could have that future sooner, and I think that's the gist rather than a whole. It's interesting. I suppose 2 out of the 3 here are essentially historicals, aren't they? And I suppose Silver Nemesis has got a historical element to it, isn't it? Which is funny when you think that people sort of said by the 80s historical wasn't a thing anymore. I mean, I suppose in 1988, I suppose it's still 25 years ago, wasn't it? So I suppose that's historical enough in the past. So I think that's one of the great things that sort of adds to this, isn't it? I suppose you instantly sort of a slight limitation on technology and stuff, and that's scary. But yeah, it's love Fenric. I mean, I must have my old anecdote on the reviews that this was when I was a kid. I had nightmares about this, so Mum and Dad stopped Doctor Who. That was it. I mean, it was horrible because for 7, things that came out of the sea to suck the blood out of you that you couldn't shoot. It's horrible. They're not stopped by gunfire. They're stopped by sort of faith in whatever it be, your revolution or your god or whatever. So it's actually fairly horrible, and it's quite sort of an unusual, because I mean, if you cast back to the last story about, you know, Silver Nemesis, bless, where Ace is, you know, catapulting Cybermen, they are scary, they are monstrous, but she's bamming them with coins. So there's a sort of mental kind of, that's how you stop Cybermen. Whereas when the herbivores are coming, they're killing you. And I've always had a sort of dislike for things underwater like that. So all the kind of underwater shots and the dead commando and his eyes opening and all that, it's horrible. I think even when I came to watching the video, and I was about 11 watching the video, it was still scary and I didn't like it. So and it still has such a great atmosphere, and I think that's why it's so loved by the fans.
And wouldn't be out of place entirely in the new series. And this is where I think the adult nature of the last couple of seasons and the darker that the story's got, this would make a brilliant remake. If you remade this today, the script and the sort of premise behind this story would stand just equally as well and be an awful lot better than some of what we've had to endure, I think, in the last year or two.
Interestingly, just before we go to a score on this, our averages, all the stats, our averages suggested that 24 was our least favourite season, which averaged on 20 points. 26 averaged 23 points, and 25 averaged 25. So actually, season 25 came out as our favourite of the three.
Well, that is interesting. I love these new stats we've got.
I'm living for my spreadsheet now. I'm living for it. You wait till you get individual averages, and I'm like, well. And actually, to be honest with you, I can give you individual averages, and I will tell you that for all three seasons, that James was our highest scorer and I was our lowest scorer.
Wow. I'm loving this. This is our homework's being marked. I love this.
It's statistics. I'm loving it. I love a bit of statistic.
Can you call me stingy for giving it 9.5?
Yeah, 9.5. Literally, you just gotta go that little bit further. It's like, well, do you know what? Pepsi the dog didn't put in a good enough performance for me, so I'm taking half off.
Rewatching it, your face was a picture. I've got to be honest. You went in with your 10, and we dropped in. Both of us dropped in with 9.5, and you were like, "Oh, I don't believe you just."
I dropped half for the Super Ted.
Oh God!
I'd have thought you'd have added half on for a bear.
Oh.
Least said, soon as mended. Right. Let's have scores. Now, what I want here, boys and girls, is 3 points for your favourite, 2 points for the next, and 1 point for your least favourite. Are we on that? Is Jason's pad in place?
My pad is raring to go and standing by.
Who's going first then?
Oh, I'll go first this time. So in the order as suggested. So my 3 points go to Remembrance. My 2 points go to Silver Nemesis. Can't even say it. And my 1 point goes to Curse of Fenric.
Well. There we go. Okay.
I think James's connection just dipped out then. I think is he gone? Is he gone?
Who?
James. I think James is gone.
James,
did you say you booted him out?
Okay, I'll go next then, because I think Ben's holding the cast here, I think, somewhere along the line. So it will come as no surprise that my 3 points is going to be awarded to
Genesis of the Daleks.
Remembrance of the Daleks. I think my 10 points probably would go to Genesis as well, but it's definitely going to Remembrance of the Daleks in this instance. Absolutely, for me, the pinnacle of the McCoy era. I can't help but say it, but it's the pinnacle of the McCoy era for sure. My 2 points, not unsurprisingly here either, will go to the Curse of Fenric, because again, I think this is I mean, I gave it 9.5, but I might as well have just given it a 10 because they're a season apart from each other. But seriously, these are two epic Doctor Who stories and brilliant examples of, I think, what is possible when you bring all the elements of the program together and they all work on screen perfectly well. So no surprise at all that my 1 point will go to the Silver Nemesis for all the reasons that I've discussed already. There you go.
Right, my turn. My top will be Remembrance of the Daleks. This is pretty much going to be a retread of what Jason's just said. My top will be Remembrance of the Daleks because I love it. It's fantastic. I think it's the best McCoy. Coming very close, a second is The Curse of Fenric for 2 points because I think that's amazing. And again, it's the best of season 26. And at the bottom, a disappointing one for me is Silver Nemesis. 1 point. Thank you.
I'm still slightly recovering from James's score, but hey. just saying. Yeah, it's my 3 points and up all of your bums. My 3 points is for The Curse of Fenric, which I think is much. You know what? I think it's a lot better. I think it's just more stylish, more grown up, more classically me. So my 2 points goes to Remembrance of the Daleks, and the 1 point goes to Silver Nemesis. I mean, when it comes down to talk about Remembrance and Fenric, I don't think you can sort of put Nemesis in the same breath. As much as I love it, it's not in the same league. Which means that our top 3 in 3rd place is Silver Nemesis with 5 points. 2nd place is The Curse of Fenric with 8 points, and it means the favourite McCoy with 11 points is Remembrance of the Daleks.
Yay! Yay!
Total victory for the Daleks in the Space War. It's fine. I'm off to jump in the water with a Russian commando and come back with big claws. I think that's a win situation here, actually.
That's win. That's not just a win. That's win-win, as far as I'm concerned.
Anyway, thank you very much, gentlemen, for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. A pleasure as always.
Ben was happy you got him first there. Thank you.
Yeah, but he's got to learn to get to the camera, hasn't he?
Yes.
It still needs more work.
Greedy Jason.
Jason's got some kind of little ticker that he's got on his screen that he just flicks enough noise to get it back.
I've learned all the methods here to hug the camera as well,
Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. What's your favourite McCoy story? Put it below. Like us, subscribe to us, follow us, and we will see you again soon.